Hello and welcome to Atop the Fourth Wall, where bad comics burn. In 1964, Sports Illustrated magazine, in order to create some buzz in the otherwise slow sports period of winter months, introduced its first annual swimsuit issue. Since then, the swimsuit issue has been a staple of the magazine, sometimes earning ire for supposedly reducing women in it to just being sex objects, while others contend that it has used the platform to help promote diversity and inclusivity by showcasing different body types and combating stigmas and other issues. I tend to lean more towards the latter, though growing up in the 90s, it was hard to escape the idea that it was made mostly for prurient interests. Porn without actual pornography if you couldn't get your hands on a Playboy. And the comic book industry, full of characters who were already half naked, decided, hey, why don't we do that? And thus was born the swimsuit issue, with Marvel leading the charge on it. Well, I say that, but apparently one of the inspirations for the idea came from a hobbyist magazine, Amazing Heroes, which talked about comics. In the late 80s, they began releasing their own swimsuit issues, which of course featured essentially fan art of superheroes in swimwear. In 1991, with the speculator boom in full swing, Marvel began releasing an annual swimsuit issue. The same kind of collector's item kind of work that of course is worthless without a Mr. T trading card, featuring pinups of Marvel characters and other stuff we'll talk about later. While they only made 5 of them, their legacy has endured to the point where some companies actually do still release swimsuit issues too, and the swimsuit issues themselves have been mocked and joked about. And that's what we're going to be doing today! Look through a crap ton of these swimsuit issues from various companies, compare them a bit, and make fun of them. Because, well, it's summer at the time of this video's release, and much like a Comic Book Quickies episode, it's nice to look at weird little odds and ends of this industry. So let's dig into some comic book swimsuit issues and see if they're actually worthy of the ridicule they regularly receive. Start with the Marvel ones, since those are the most well-known and popular, beginning with Marvel Illustrated, the swimsuit issue. Subtle, guys, no one would ever guess what it is that you're parodying. Truly, this must have the same comedic genius as Power Pachyderms. Parody is actually the thing that needs to be talked about right away, because while the first thing one would assume about these comics is that they're just full of Marvel superheroines in bikini pinups, and they are, a good chunk of this first one is made pretty much to act as a parody of an actual magazine, right down to having fake interviews with superheroes and parody advertisements for products. Our very first one is deodorant with Wolverine. It's a fact. When you exert yourself, you sweat. And when you sweat, you stink.
Of course! Don't you know anything about science?
And just like ordinary people, superheroes, even those with a hypersensitive sense of smell like Wolverine, are usually the last ones to know that they smell bad. Wolverine knows, he just likes to annoy Cyclops with it. Macho, Speed Stick Deodorant, for the hero in us all. The very smelly hero in us all. There are more like that in this first one, though my favorite has to be underwear. Just underwear. Sure, they spell it differently and make it 2 words, but it's just underwear. And also, the hero advertising it as Wonder Man, who usually is wearing pants, but with all the lines added to it, well, this could double as an actual superhero costume. Although, hilariously, Namor, the dude who would normally be in just a Speedo, is actually wearing more clothes later in the comic. Another very amusing one is a disposable razor that Thor is advertising. The beard of Odin is legendary. But what about his sons? But why would he ever want to get rid of his beard? Even Captain America wants to copy it. For whatever reason, despite the swimsuit issues not actually being comics, they actually had sort of a plot, or at least a framing device for why all the characters are hanging out in their swimsuits. In this case, superheroes are flying into the Savage Land to host a Super Olympics and swimsuit charity event sponsored by Stark Enterprises, and presumably deodorant companies. Like I said, it's actually presented like an in-universe magazine. There's a note from fashion editor Janet Van Dyne, a list of various sporting events that the heroes are participating in, highlights from it, and for some reason Daredevil was in the skiing event. Yeah, I'm pretty sure heightened senses and jumping around Hell's Kitchen makes you qualified to go skiing. Like, was there a different lineup, but there was an injury and Daredevil was a last-minute replacement? How does this happen? So let's actually get to why we're all here, the swimsuit portion of it. It's about half and half split between being just tongue-in-cheek or actual attempts at pinups. For example, the highlight of it is a centerfold of Mary Jane Watson in a more painted style, although considering this is supposed to be about superheroines and not just straight-up fashion models, it's unclear in story why she's here. Who's just posing by a waterfall? Alternatively, there's friggin' Howard the Duck alongside sometimes girlfriend Beverly Switzler. More cheesecakey, you have a 2-page spread featuring all the X-women versus a more comedic take of Cable in all gritty-teeth 90s-ness being pissy about a leopard print bikini that Boom Boom and Jubilee want him to wear. Why did he even bring the giant guns on this trip? Also, Jubilee, I think you might be suffering from jaundice. Also, again, the whole idea of having a framing device makes the in-universe aspect confusing, since there's a full page of a bunch of supervillainesses posing in skimpy outfits for this charity event. And then there's whatever the hell is going on with Wolverine, the Thing, Beast, and the Hulk. What's happened to their legs? Damn it, Wolverine! We tried that macho deodorant and it made our legs shrink! Also, that grin from the Hulk is terrifying. Add on the Youngblood's disease with his eyes, and I'm pretty sure this is actually Marvel Zombies Hulk. There is a difference with how the men are shown in the swimsuit issues versus the women, but I'll talk more about that a little later. But yeah, overall, the first of these is kind of a weird experience. A year later, Marvel followed up with the Marvel Swimsuit Special, and already a lot of the pretense was dropped. While the parody advertisements remained, the interviews and sports stuff got dropped by the wayside in favor of more pinups. This time, the framing device sets the photo shoot in Wakanda during T'Challa's marriage to a woman named Monica Lynn. Ironically, the Black Panther would end up marrying Storm later on, and she's the one gracing the cover. My favorite ad for this one is right out of the starting gate. Bug spray endorsed by the Punisher. What does the Punisher use when he has cockroaches? DeathCon! DeathCon! Don't just kill them, punish them! You guys are aware that the Punisher is a mass-murdering vigilante wanted by law enforcement, right? And thanks to its special new formula, DeathCon actually prolongs the death of insects. Make sure they feel as much pain as possible before they die. DeathCon, when you feel like being especially cruel to creatures that don't know any better. But yeah, the pinups in this one definitely lean more into the cheesecake than before. It starts out yet again with Mary Jane Watson in some kind of webbing-inspired one-piece swimsuit, I guess? The purpose of the arm warmers baffles me. And yeah, cheesecake abounds in this one. A lot more women posing sexily without as much of the attempted humor of the first. I'll actually give credit to Joe Quesada for once with one of the few humorous pieces, with Ghost Rider's flaming skullhead wearing a snorkel. Hey, wait, T'Challa's marriage to Monica Lynn didn't really end up happening. Was Joe Quesada breaking up marriages this early? And then there's whatever in God's name this is supposed to be. I think it's supposed to be like a parody of jeans ads? I think? But just, what is this art? What am I looking at? You see, people? This is what happens when you use too much macho deodorant. We get a little more beefcake in this one, a step up for balance between men and women than the last one, in particular this Captain America one, and I'll definitely explain why this one counts as fan service for women versus some of the other ones later. That being said, the artwork is a bit questionable. Like, how much tanning oil did Cap cover himself with? Is Captain America in blackface in this? Oh, but lest ye think the pinup from last time was the only time the villains invaded these swimsuit issues, we have this. Dr. Doom and the Kingpin may have had political amnesty, but they didn't have practical joke amnesty. And yes, you are looking at Dr. Doom and the Kingpin being attacked by monkeys. And Dr. Doom is wearing sunglasses and holding a blow-up doll. No woman has ever been able to handle the might and power of Doom! As such, Doom gets very lonely, even on vacations. Do not judge Doom! The final ad is for an insurance company after one of the Hulk's rampages and God, that smile! What is it with these swimsuit issues making the Hulk scary? The second swimsuit issue brings a different sort of framing device in the form of Pip the Troll, who we last saw in the Infinity War review. And indeed, Adam Warlock's little Infinity Watch group is what gets us started here. After the events of Infinity War, Pip the Troll wins a card game with the other members of the Watch and uses the power of the Infinity Stones to arrange a party. Just saying, Thanos, maybe Death would have been more impressed with you if you used your godlike power to throw a rockin' kegger instead of killing half the universe. Oh, and Pip specifically points out that he used the power of the Mind Stone to make all the heroes acquiesce to all this. Mind control in order to force women into bikinis. Our hero, everybody! Yeah, this one's especially creepy. The commentary on the previous two had been focused around the fashion designs of the swimsuits, with a little bit of nudge-nudge, wink-wink commentary, but this one's comments are all about Pip leering at the women, and it's so damn gross. There's occasional jokes about the men on hand, but with the women, it's all, haha, I want to have sex. Still, Ghost Rider once again wins out as being the best. Quick runner-up is the Punisher in this whatever the hell this is. And yet, oddly enough, as we have seen on this show, this is only like the third most embarrassing thing the Punisher has ever done. Fourth if you count the Death Con ad. This one only had 2 parody ads, but this one's definitely the winner. The Clanger! We know you work hard at being bad, and let's face it, planning world domination can really take it out of a person. That's why we invented the Clanger. Now you can destroy your enemies with a mere clap of your hands, without ever having to leave the comfort of your chair. Doom shall clang his enemies into oblivion! Then a relaxing evening at home with the blow-up doll. Doom knows how to spend a Friday night in style! The third Marvel swimsuit issue brings the action to the friggin' moon! The framing device here is a water festival hosted by the Inhumans that only comes along every 100 years. And it's being observed by Uatu the Watcher, who provides the commentary. Because apparently when you're a cosmic being meant to appear during times of great import, you need to make sure you focus on women in bikinis. Or druggies that you direct Spider-Man to go help. The captions are definitely a step up, since instead of leering, it's more admiration for the people themselves and commentary on the odd customs of humanity than anything else. We once again have villain representation, though oddly enough, it's Daredevil's nemesis, Bullseye. And his page happens right after friggin' Elektra's, the woman he murdered! Also, America's ass, everybody! Wait, why is he reading the Constitution? Is that just what Cap does in his spare time? And by the by, all of these swimsuit issues have Mary Jane Watson in them. She's good enough to ogle, but not good enough to be married to Peter. Apparently the Moon finally got Hulk to calm down and stop grinning creepily as we see this candid moment of him brushing his hair. Also, is it just me or does he look like a green Ted Danson in the mirror? This one seems to have the best balance of beefcake versus cheesecake, still leaning towards sexily posing women, but a lot more men put in similar poses, or at least ones that look like they were intended for women. The final swimsuit issue barely has a framing device, only really that the heroes are hanging out in the fictional Southeast Asian country of Madripoor, and narrated by the crime lord Tiger, who apparently decided to dress up in a bikini and pose too. By this point, there's only a single parody ad, for Tylenade Triple Strength, which is what I needed after reading the Pip the Troll swimsuit issue. Winner of the most amusing in the book is Venom Fishing, since he just put on swim trunks over his symbiote. One's with Spider-Man on him, because I think he might be a little obsessed. Winner of most unintentionally amusing, though, is Thor, who is no doubt screaming in pain for whatever is going on with his right arm slowly melting into the rest of his body. Unfortunately, the Hulk, now away from the moon, has returned to his creepy smiles. We've also got Namor obviously being pissed off in this shot, the caption pointing out that it probably has to do with the skimpy seashell thing he's wearing. And considering said seashell's size, man, talk about shrinkage. However, this does allow me to transition into what I've been hinting at in regards to the swimsuit issues. How men are portrayed in these things versus women, and there is a distinct difference. So even today, I still get groans from people who don't like when I complain about skimpy clothing for superheroines in comics. A common counter to the critique is, well, guys are drawn with unrealistic tight costumes too, or other variants thereof. The problem with this complaint is that it doesn't understand what the problem is actually about, and the swimsuit issues actually illustrate the issue at hand. When women are drawn in skimpy attire, they're usually drawn to be ogled. They are there to be objectified, to be leered at, to be jerk-off material. Most of the women in the swimsuit issues are drawn posing sexily. They're throwing their heads back, they're giving come-hither stares, they're rubbing suntan lotion on themselves, etc. Most of the men are not drawn that way. They're drawn to look powerful, they're flexing, they're lifting, or if the women are meant to be leered at, the men are the ones doing the leering, usually in the background of the shots, with captions being like, yeah, they got boners for these women, but not quite as crass as I put it. Otherwise, if they're showing off their physical strength, the idea of them in skimpy attire is played for laughs. Men's sexuality is either funny or showing strength. Women's sexuality is there to be objectified. And that's the larger issue in comic books as a whole. Women are drawn to be sexy, men are drawn to be powerful. It's of course not 100% across the board like that, much like the swimsuit issues themselves, but it is a thing. A lot of the counter-complainers assume that men in skimpy attire or looking strong is meant to be sexy for women, but it's not. At least most of the time, it's not meant to be. A lot of women who look at this goofy image of Thor are not going to be turned on by it, or even assume it was meant to be titillating. I mean, again, not 100% across the board, of course. I'm sure there are plenty of women who see T'Challa bathing in ecto-cooler on the moon and thinking that's hot. And some guys, too. I'm not trying to be heteronormative here. I'm just saying that the swimsuit issues seem to be mostly aimed at straight people in particular. But they're also just as likely to see this weird Morbius one where he's ripping off his shirt and making that face, and still being attracted to it, even though it's probably meant more as a joke. Sexual attraction is more complicated than the simplified version of less clothes equals sexy that a lot of media suggests, is all I'm saying. Although what woman wouldn't see the Punisher in this skull speedo and not immediately want to jump him? This is sex appeal, people. But of course, credit where it's due, Marvel was at least trying to be balanced for the most part. The Pip the Troll one notwithstanding, of course. But later swimsuit issues from companies did not reflect that same attitude. DC, as far as I know, never really made any kind of swimsuit specials like Marvel, but other companies jumped on board. I'm limited by the stuff that I was able to find, either scans or the ones donated to me, so I don't have a copy of, say, the Lady Death swimsuit issue that was made around the same time. No, a lot of the ones I have are surprisingly more modern ones, like a Street Fighter and Friends swimsuit issue from 2017, which, like, actual porn of these characters exists for free on the internet. You don't need to be doing the cheesecake stuff for popular franchises when there's just straight up nudity and banging going on. There really isn't anything I can joke about with it either. At least the Marvel ones had some humorous things to comment on, like the fake ads or the captions. This one's just 20 plus pages of pinups. I mean, Chun-Li gets some ice cream dropped on her head and that results in a fight, I guess? This is just boobs and butts. And it's fine. There's nothing inherently wrong with it. I just don't see the point in this day and age. While DC didn't have any swimsuit issues that I could find, Wildstorm did at the same time. No framing device or fake ads, but it does bring in the captions. Nothing really much to comment on except for the occasional artistic quirk, like this one featuring Spartan and Voodoo, with Voodoo apparently channeling the spirit of 22 brides with those legs. Also, this naked lady named Bliss laying in a massive pile of bullets, which cannot be comfortable. Also, I think you might have missed the point of a swimsuit issue when she's just straight up naked, and not even on the beach. Or is pollution so bad there that there's sand under those bullets? Then there's this one featuring the character Zealot, which actually had me double take because it's really not that different from a lot of her normal outfits. In the 1995 issue, Voodoo and Zealot meet Forrest Gump, while also not wearing swimsuits. Okay, now you guys are just breaking the spirit and integrity of the swimsuit issue, dang it. While the 94 and 95 swimsuit issues lack the framing device, the 1997 one does seem to have a running motif of them all being sci-fi or fantasy themed, with aliens and dragons and space and other planets and stuff being the locales for all the shots. Even a Star Wars one with Grunge acting as Jabba the Hutt and Princess Freefall as Leia in the Hutt Slayer bikini. Again, still less skeevy than Pit the Troll's narrating. Something somewhat different about the Wildstorm ones is that there are a couple black and white pinups. I don't know if they just weren't colored in time, or if they were always meant to be black and white, but it's something fairly unique. The late Michael Turner's Fathom had a few swimsuit issues as well, and again, I am puzzled at their existence, because Fathom's outfit is just straight up a bikini. Like, look at the cover for the definitive edition. Every issue is the swimsuit issue already! There were two originally made in 1999 and 2000, but the company that produced Fathom, Aspen Comics, released Aspen Splash in 2018. None of them have captions, but credit to the Aspen Splash one, there's a lot more diversity in artistic styles amongst the artists, and they even throw in a few more jokey ones than there were in the Fathom ones. But those were not really the only pointless swimsuit comics, because of course, there's another one that's just as baffling. Grimm Fairy Tales. In case you've never heard of them, Grimm Fairy Tales is the flagship book of Zenscope Entertainment, an indie company that's mostly known for two things: the aforementioned Grimm Fairy Tales, and a few licensed books, in particular Charmed Season 9. Go watch Obscurus Lupa's video on them for more details there. But Grimm Fairy Tales is really their bread and butter. And shockingly, the book is still around at the time of this video's release, boasting over 150 issues, as well as several spin-offs and miniseries. It is its own comic book universe at this point, and for an indie press, that's impressive. The problem is that I have never felt inclined to take a look at a single issue of it, because like 99% of the covers of their books are cheesecakey. Because if there was one demographic that was sorely misrepresented in the comic book industry, it was the fairy tale boob enthusiasts. Because fans donate a lot to the show, and a shocking amount of Grimm Fairy Tale stuff has been sent my way, I flipped through a few of the trades, and most of the actual content is not like that, but there is still some in there, so I guess if the covers really are keeping people reading this stuff, a collection of pinups of these characters is completely within reason. Once again, we have captions for these, no parody ads, but in a few of them we are reminded that sometimes the artists don't actually know how anatomy works. Like this lady lounging on a panther. I'm pretty sure we should be able to see the nipple on her right boob from this angle. These artists also apparently went to the Jim Balance School of Women's Feet, because they really struggle with drawing women who aren't in high heels. Hell, this Little Red Riding Hood, who's apparently doing a Vampirella cosplay, has her foot on the ground, but she's clearly straining as if she was standing on her tippy toes. Also, get this comic if you really wanted to see Snow White's wicked stepmother's butt. The one advantage the Grimm Fairy Tales swimsuit comics have over all the others is that they actually have honest-to-God comics inside of them. They're not very good, but hey, a comic that actually has comic material in it is nice. They're short stories, only a few pages, but they feature the characters in swimsuits on a beach or at a pool or something, and that justifies their inclusion. Also, in a few spots, visible nipples poking through. Not isolated to the first one either. The 2012 one has a wet t-shirt with just straight up nipples behind them, which is, again, baffling with some artists really trying their hardest to try to figure out where nipples actually are on boobs. You'd think with the amount of porn they probably studied for these shots that they'd know where they are, but hey, as long as there is some kind of object covering a portion of their boobs, that must be where the nipple is! Or, like, do they just have a bunch of Barbie dolls that they're using for their poses? Some of the pinups are just messed up. Like, here's one where the Little Mermaid has sushi eaten off of her in Okinawa, which I'm pretty sure is actually some kind of brothel. Just what in the actual hell? Also, what is up with her anatomy? She has a butt, but like, the fishtail just starts before her butt ends? Or does she have a front butt based on that crack we see there? Like, forget the played out jokes about how does a guy have sex with a mermaid? This thing says that they have front butts. Their anatomy is so much more complicated than you'd ever imagine. The 2016 swimsuit special doesn't have any captions beyond saying who's in the pinup, but the comic story is actually kind of decent. I don't know who the redheaded character is, but she brings a bunch of horrible criminals, murderers, traffickers, and rapists, to a resort on the pretense of winning a vacation, and then feeds them to sharks. It's a surprisingly neat little horror story. As they go on, though, the pinups get progressively lazier, with most of the shot just being taken up by the woman who's posing, barely any background, no creative framing or anything. Also, mermaid ass, if you can call it an ass. The last one I have is from an Image series called Curse Words, which is a modern fantasy with wizards and flying tiger dragons. And it's not actually a swimsuit comic. Yeah, it's just a single story set on a beach with the various characters involved. I'm guessing it was just done to be tongue-in-cheek versus actually matching the material. The swimsuit comic is an odd relic of the 90s that really has no reason to endure as long as it has, and yet here it still is. I kind of wish, though, that more of them at least tried to do what Marvel did. Don't just go for pinups, actually have some fun with it. Treat it like an in-universe thing. Be creative with, like, interviews and articles and parody ads and all that. It honestly makes the whole thing a lot more enjoyable and not just an excuse for barely softcore porn. Next time, back to a full-on storyline review as we delve into a DC storyline post-New 52. And it's really bad. Yo, Hellstorm, is that a monster between your legs, or are you just happy to see me? No one is happy to see you, Pip. Ever. Hello, my friends. Please be sure to like this video, subscribe, hit the bell, and share it with others. And if you get a chance, maybe check out my Patreon.